Well now, Donald Trump and co out of office, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in office. It's been 72 hours, nobody's been shot or hanged, nothing's been blown up or burned down. It's a pretty good start. Also, big flurry of executive orders and appointments and things. Very promising start. Mostly I like what I've seen. But I'm a little worried about the both sides rhetoric. It's a much better kind of both sides rhetoric, but it's still there. He said in his inauguration speech, promised to be a president of all Americans, those who supported him and those who didn't. I'm just not sure he knows quite how many Americans didn't support him. We know about 70 million of them who didn't. I think it's more like 320 million. As we saw with the primaries, people like Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, de Blasio, Booker, Gloria de la Riva, Harry Hawkins, actual left-wingers, are really rather popular with, you know, the enlightened poor. But the rich corporate donors, who've been making a fortune out of business as usual all this time, the ones who really don't want a left-winger in office, the ones who are keen to have things carry on the way they were before, well, it's in their interests, financially speaking, to make sure that the people believe that a left-winger can never take office and therefore never support one, which makes it true, which keeps them in power and rich, such as plutocracy. But that's where we were before. That system, that normal to which the election of Joe Biden appears to be returning in the United States, that's the situation that existed in 2015, 2016. What happened in 2016 as a result of that situation? I mean, Joe Biden's biggest selling point really was that he's not Donald Trump, and anybody else could have had that selling point. You notice that 70 million people didn't buy it? 70 million people who still don't like the idea of business as usual, of the situation that existed before, back in 2008 to 2016. Some of them, just because they always vote for whoever's got an R after his name, sure. But some of them because they have very real problems with that system, and somehow deluded themselves into thinking that Donald Trump was going to fix those problems, because they don't know any better. And well, if you go back to the same situation, you get the same outcome, don't you? Definition of insanity. Trying the same thing from the same position, in the same way, again and again, expecting the results to change. So if the whole point of voting for Joe Biden was to get not Donald Trump in office, Joe Biden in office had better do something other than recreate the situation that put Donald Trump in office, hadn't he? Looking at a political compass diagram, a whole lot of them are up in the top right. Kamala Harris not so much, but she does have some authoritarian right-wing history, let's say. From a European point of view, they're all authoritarian right-wing. From the point of view of the poor people who would very much like to have enough money to live on, very much like to have access to healthcare and education, you know, a chance to maybe one day see the world, rather than being stuck in dead-end estates, dead-end counties, dead-end jobs, or what may seem sometimes to be dead-end families, because poverty is hereditary even. the right-wing authoritarian, corporate plutocracy isn't really all that appealing. And they're left with a choice of right-wing authoritarian or right-wing authoritarian. Not a choice of position, it's a choice of which corporations will power. Not really good. And I worry that talk of those who supported him and those who didn't is based on an assumption that 80 million people really like him just the way he is. I really hope he knows that actually hundreds of millions of Americans would actually like someone else, someone who genuinely gives a damn about them. Actually wants to make the world a better place, at least for them, possibly for everyone. Believes that lacking the foresight to be born to rich parents shouldn't preclude you from ever having a good job. Or that people should be entitled to some days of paid holiday every year. There's a left-wing socialist idea. Or that that car is being very noisy. I don't know how much of that was picked up on the camera's microphone, but that was irritating. Something someone said in the live stream today was that trying to reach across the aisle all the time when the people on the other side keep moving further and further away and expecting you to do all the reaching, you end up crossing the aisle, climbing over the seats and falling out through the fire exit. Which brings up this really interesting possibility. Because once upon a time, the Democratic Party was the plutocratic right-wing party. They were the racist white supremacists. And the Republicans got very popular by not being that bad. Then the Democrats moved into the centre and the Republicans hopped past them to the right to take the racist vote. And that left the Republicans as the further right party. But the Democrats stayed right-wing. The Democrats haven't really been moving to Republican territory by drifting further and further right over the last 12 years or more. Really, they've been moving back into their old territory. Which means the proper place for the Republican Party to go to grab votes would be way across to the left, way down in the liberal direction where, personal freedom matters and hard-working poor people get to have rights and keep the money they earn, rather than it all being taken off them and shovelled into the pockets of multimillionaires. Back into political territory once occupied by Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Abraham Lincoln. You may have heard of them. It is my belief that a lot of people in the USA think it's long past time a party somewhere in that part of the political spectrum had power. Big question at the moment is which one's going to move there, if either. If neither does, we're right back to 2016. We get another Donald Trump, one who isn't quite as obviously insane, one who's a little better at disguising the fascism, one who'll do a more effective job of utterly trashing democracy in the USA. It's a rather scary thought. honestly, if the Democratic Party can't come up with a better idea than more of the same, if they can't identify the real problems and genuinely fix them and do some, you know, real social justice type stuff, you know, behave in a fair way, just way towards society and the people in it, that being the function of government, alongside promoting the general welfare and working towards a more perfect union and providing for the common defence and ensuring domestic tranquility. It's just possible the Democratic Party could get completely destroyed by the next 6 years, and frankly they'll deserve it. Of course, the Republican Party pretty much deserves to be completely destroyed by the last 4 years. We haven't seen that happen yet. But you never know. It's been a weird few years. Maybe someone will get what they deserve. Wouldn't that be a strange thought? Wouldn't that be a strange thing to see in a capital city of pure justice? Almost as hard to imagine as this tripod sitting exactly where I leave it. There we go. So in summary, yes, I think President Joseph Biden should be a president for all American people, those who did support him and those who didn't. We should acknowledge that the majority of the American people didn't really support him and are a long way further from Trump than he is. And if you want some things to look at for ideas for what might work better, well, the German or Norwegian prison system seems to work a whole lot better, much lower recidivism rates. French healthcare costs the French less than half as many dollars per person per year as US healthcare costs US people. And that's government spending, you know, Medicare and Medicaid is costing US taxpayers twice as much per person per year as the French socialised healthcare for everyone is costing French taxpayers. Might be worth looking at adopting their system, because something about it seems to be working a whole lot better. The Portuguese approach to the war on drugs. A few years ago, they were doing war on drugs extremely hard, and it was costing them a fortune and not necessarily going all that well. And they changed what they were doing. The result of the changes they made was a massive reduction in addiction rates, a massive reduction in overdose rates, a massive reduction in violent crime rates, a massive reduction in crimes of acquisition, and a general massive increase in safety, health and happiness of the population. And it cost them less money. So that sounds like something that might be worth investigating. Some people might be unhappy about those changes because, oh no, people are getting away with something that's illegal, but really, what's the big deal about that? If I shovel a neighbour's drive without asking permission, I've taken a spade onto their property without their permission, that's armed trespass, that's illegal. But should it be? Is it actually a bad thing that I don't get into trouble for doing that? If it's not such a bad thing, then maybe that, oh no, people are getting away with something that's illegal, well, maybe we can deal with that. What else? Oh yes. The single transferable vote, proportional representation, and a curious combination of the two, best explained by CGP Gray's Politics in the Animal Kingdom videos, in which rather than the very slight majority of votes in one area deciding which party gets all the representation of that area, areas get a number of representatives from various parties in approximate proportion to the number of votes those parties got from those areas. You would need more representatives. Really, it's a bit ridiculous how many people each representative has to represent at the moment anyway. Single transferable vote lets people say which party they like, which individual, which party, which candidate they like most, and which candidate they like the second most, and which candidate they like the third most, and which candidate they like the fourth most. And then the candidate with the least support gets eliminated, and their votes get redistributed to second choice, to those voters as second choices. Which means that people that support minority parties, like Green, or Socialism and Liberation, or Alliance, or Constitution, or Libertarian, can actually vote for the party they support, without taking away their votes from whichever of the two big parties they prefer. That makes people feel a little bit more represented. Of course, the scary thing from a multimillionaire plutocrat's point of view is that it might actually make them more represented. Might mean you get some genuine representatives of the ordinary people taking office, rather than representatives of corporate multimillionaire plutocrats. And they wouldn't like that, would they? Anyway, good luck. Don't let the bastards set the agenda, and don't fall out of the fire exit trying to reach across the aisle to people who aren't even in the building.